Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of the Wordsmith Forge Christian Fiction Podcast. I'm your guest, Mike Baines. Yeah, I said guest. Today's the roles were reversed as I stepped into the guest chair and shared my own story, while Pastor Brandon Robertson guided the conversation with insight and care. So welcome, Pastor Brandon Robertson. Thank you for agreeing to be the guest host for this episode. Would you tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what's going on with you?
Yeah, I am. My name is Brandon Robertson. I'm the associate pastor at Journey by Grace Church, and I've been a lead pastor for about 10 years. I started in ministry full-time in about 2015, and married, couple kids, and I am honored to have been asked by you to do this, Mike. I've never actually been a guest host on a podcast before, so this is new for me too, so I think this is going to be a really fun adventure.
Yeah, not too many people can say that they've been a guest host. So
right.
This is going to be interesting, and as we talked earlier, it's going to be a little uncomfortable for me, but now I know what my guests go through. I don't know if I can be any more empathetic having gone through this, because I'll still put people through the same grinder that I always do.
That's right.
But I am turning the reins over to you, and treat me as though this is your podcast.
All right. So I know this might seem strange. You might think you know Mike because he's been the host, but please, Mike, introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thank you, Brandon. I'd be happy to do that. My name is Mike Baines. I am an author and a podcast host most of the time. I have a lot of different experiences that led me to where I am today. And I like to remark that it's all the little things that happen to you in life that direct you to one set of large decisions and forever away from other large decisions. So it's really the small, seemingly inconsequential decisions we make that put us where we are. I think I've gained a huge advantage from moving around the country a lot. I think if I had stayed in my little hometown and never moved around, I would not have done the things that I've been able to do. Counting Army experiences, I've lived in Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, Korea. I was a career forester with the USDA Forest Service. And I started in Indiana and moved to Illinois. So the Hoosier in Indiana, the Shawnee in Illinois, research actually. And from there, the Modoc National Forest in California, to the Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania, a little stint on the Finger Lakes National Forest in New York, a little stint in the Roosevelt National Forest in Colorado, and then the Wayne National Forest in Ohio. And finally, I retired from the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia. So I've got some miles on my shoes.
Well, I was going to ask, my next question was going to be, where do you live? And if you've always lived there. Well, that you obviously answered the question. The answer is no, you've not always lived in one spot. Now, I'm assuming where you live now is where you're planning to stay.
Yes.
Okay.
We have lived here the longest of anywhere we've ever lived. And we, back in 1999, we abandoned our children. I have two daughters. They both finished college, got married, and a son who decided he'd start college. And while they left for school, we left the state. So we left them in Pennsylvania. And so after I retired, we moved back to be close to our children. Yeah. But everywhere I went, people said, boy, you lucked out this time. You're in God's country. And I always said, you betcha.
Yeah.
You don't want to disagree with the local people.
That's right. That's right. Well, speaking of that, speaking of special places, we were just on the men's retreat, as you know.
Yes.
And I found that to be just a wonderful spot in our state, in Pennsylvania. It's only a few hours away, but, you know, sometimes just getting away. It was very special for me. It was a place where I found refreshment
Mm-hmm.
So in all the places you've lived and worked and all the experiences you've had with that, with moving around, do you have a special place that sort of refreshes your soul, kind of rejuvenates your spirit, anything like that?
Yeah, I guess I would have to say the Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania. I've done a little solo camping in the forest, so I know with my second book, I was kind of unhappy with the ending, and I was by myself up in the national forest along Salmon Creek. I had a tarp spread out up above me because it was raining. And as I just sat there, the ending came to me as I felt like God wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I get a lot of solace from wilderness, and we've always lived in very small communities, no matter what state we're in. So that's been really special for me, is to just be able to get away. And as you said, when we went up to Potter County on the men's retreat, all the men had to leave their daily routine behind.
Yeah.
And so it was a break from the regular. And we did have a very special time up there. Beautiful mountains, bald eagles. I'm not sure how many fish you caught.
I caught a decent amount. I only caught one trout, but I caught several bass. I caught, of course, the suckers. They're always making suckers of fishermen, right? So I caught a few of those. But all of us had a lot of success. And then the trout we did catch, we were able to fry them over that campfire. And I'm telling you, there's nothing better. Nothing better.
Yeah, and the fellowship that the men share with each other is uncommon. The time we were up there, 5 different devotions.
We had 5 different ones,
We had a pastor from the northern panhandle of West Virginia join us, and he led the devotions. It was very moving, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, you said the little things. We're starting off the interview nice and easy here, but little things do matter, and so I'm sure your audience is very curious what your 3 favorite songs are, and then follow that up with your 3 favorite films.
Well, I do have an advantage over my guest, because unless they've watched a podcast and have prepared, they're a little bit off balance because they're not expecting such an off the wall question, but I knew they were coming, and I, you have to think, well, today, what's my favorite songs? As a youngster sitting in church, I can remember looking at the stained glass windows singing "This Is My Story," and other old hymns, and I think that is very important. The music you listen to, what you're taking in, determines what comes out. Sure. So, Have I Told You Lately by Van Morrison is one of my favorites, and also Harvest Moon by Neil Young. But the third one would be The Goodness of God by C.C. Winans.
Yeah, great song.
It just moves me every time. Did you ask me about the movies?
Yeah. 3 favorite films.
Did, yeah.
I figured you could just roll right into the next.
You're following the script very well. One that might be a little surprising is Knives Out.
Knives Out. I've heard of that film, but I don't think I've seen it.
Well, it's the first time I watched it, I was really enamored by it. And so if we're going to watch something, I'll pull that out. Yesterday, which is a kind of a parody of the Beatles. Yeah. It's where something happens in the world and everybody but this one guy forgets ever hearing any Beatles song. And I guess the last one, if for no other reason, my kids and I like to quote from it would be Princess Bride.
Princess Bride, a classic.
Yeah, it's a little bit girly, but
sure.
But oftentimes, when we're being visited by our daughters and even our son, though I don't know that he gets much of a kick out of it, when they leave, we say, "Hey, we love you. Have fun storming the castle."
Yeah, that's a good one.
So that's the three movies.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So a little bit of detail about your personal life. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper here before we really get into the meat and potatoes about your books and your journey as an author. Tell your audience about your walk with Christ. I mean, that's such an important part of the work you do here. So you mind sharing some details about that?
Sure. I think most Christians that didn't have thunder and lightning and a road to Damascus experience feel like they don't really have much of a testimony. But I haven't heard one yet that wasn't very important and very touching. My own, as I mentioned earlier, as a youngster sitting there listening to our congregation sing the old hymns and looking at the stained glass windows, I felt like I wanted something in my life that was solid, that was dependable. I lost my dad when I was 5, and my mom never remarried. So, and she wound up working unreasonable hours, and so I was kind of brought up by the wolves, you might say.
Right.
And Mom didn't know where I was most of the time. So after I gave my heart to the Lord at around 11 years old, and then it kind of went downhill from then as I became aware of the world around me and things that I wanted to try and do, like telling Mom I was going camping out in the woods and we were running through town all night long.
I know nothing. I know nothing about that, Mike.
Well,
I know nothing.
We've heard a little. Remember, we were at men's retreat.
Yep.
So time went on, and my life was wreaking havoc, and trying to do things on my own did not work well. And it wasn't until I was in Korea, kind of still in a downward spiral. And believe me, there's a lot of easy opportunities to be in a downward spiral in a third world country.
Yeah.
When you're a rich GI.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you've got deodorant, you've got soaps that smell good, just things that the local population don't have. And one night I just said, okay, this is low. And I said, I'm not going to do it. I've not been able to do it on my own. So I made a commitment to change. And of course, it wasn't a miraculous presto changeo, but I started on the road back to where I was.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a similar story. I don't have the thunder and lightning either. It was just an inner, I knew that I was on the wrong path. And you know what? There's nothing to reduce the impact of that. We were saved. And whether you have a thunder and lightning moment or you have alone in your bedroom, all by yourself moment, it's equally important. You're a child of God now, and that's part of your walk, and it's a great story.
And I think, like you, because I know your wife a little, that God put just an angel, to help us, kind of to move us in the right direction, oftentimes, and on occasion we help them in the same way.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of my walk with Christ. I cannot imagine ever turning my back on him.
Yeah.
And I think recent events have only sharpened that.
Amen.
As I hear you say from the pulpit, it's time to step out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might know about Christ, but are you sharing that? Are you letting other people know about him?
Yeah.
And so what,
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I often make that appeal. I just got my hair cut. If you haven't noticed, I know maybe last night.
Military size
yeah,
on
I
there.
like it nice and short, and I've been having a chat with my barber, and I finally stepped out a little bit more, and started talking about Jesus, started talking about faith, and you just got to pray that those things. Look, I think what anything is showing us is that we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
No,
we've always known it, but when it gets real, you feel that impact a little bit more. And sometimes, we humans, we need to be shaken awake a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, we do.
And, your books, before we get to the books, I mean, before you wrote books and authored books, you obviously had to discover your love and passion and gift for writing. So I'd like to know, I think your audience would like to know, what sparked your call to write Christian fiction specifically? I'm assuming it has to do with your faith, of course, but what started it? What kicked it off? What ignited it? And then, of course, why do you pursue that? Why is that your chosen genre? Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, I can trace it back to the late 1960s. I'm the last of 8 children, 2 sisters ahead of me, who's always been a storyteller. Well, she started writing a book in the 60s. And in 1983, she sent me a handwritten manuscript to read. And I read it and said, "Hey, sis, that's a great book. Good job." And I put it in a manila envelope and put it in a box. And so fast forward then to about 2019, and COVID hit, and we started doing deep cleaning, and we eventually got to the attic, and we pulled out this old box and opened it up, and there's this manila envelope. And I slid it out, and there was Fox Hollow.
Yeah.
By Verda Spice. Wouldn't that be a good pen name?
Well, that's a great name.
Verda Spice.
Spice.
But that's her actual name. But she still writes under it. And I thought, wow, this is a good book. What did she do with it? And so I called her up and said, "Are you going to do anything with this?" And she said, "No, I just wrote it." I said, "Yeah, but it's a good book. Why don't you get it published?" And that's just too much. I don't want to do that. I said, "Well, what about me? Can I do that? Can I publish it for you?" And so she sent me the copyrights to the book, and I went through Kindle and published it. And I thought, boy, that was easy. Well, talking about those little decisions that move you through life.
Yeah.
That was one, just to find out that could be done. So I probably need to tell you this. I've been a militia firefighter for 51 years, 52 years. Started out on a heli-tac crew in Southern California and have done all kinds of things. But for the last 20 years, I've been what's known as a human resources specialist. That means I take care of the human assets on a fire. It doesn't mean that I know anything about retirement or any of that kind of stuff. It's how are people being treated? Is there bullying? Are people being harassed in any way? I preach mutual respect. Well, I had a situation happen on the fire where this woman was moving a dozer around on the fire with her transport truck. And as is pretty common, anytime, well, it's not as bad as it used to be, but still, anytime a woman tries to elbow her way into a traditional male role, there's going to be some crusty old male say something that he really shouldn't. Well, this happened to that gal, and the situation came to me, and so we worked through it. But it was so unique and unusual that I thought, that's kind of a good story. So I wrote 4 pages about the incident, and there's another person on the fire doing the same thing I was doing. I shared it with him, and he said, yeah, that's interesting. So when I was released from the fire, I went home and took 4 pages and turned it into 400 pages, and and gave the gal a backstory and everything. So now at that time, I'm really not much of a reader, and at that time I didn't know there was a genre called Christian fiction, and then of course within that Christian fiction there's a multitude of others. There's mystery, suspense, dystopia, sci-fi, all kinds of Christian fiction. But after I found out, I said, well, gee, in my book I have the story of salvation, and so it must be Christian fiction. So that's how it got there. I would like to add one little thing, if you don't mind, Brandon.
Sure.
About this gal moving a dozer around on a fire. Her day job, when she wasn't working on a fire, her day job was teaching truck drivers how to drive trucks with more than one trailer. So she's got thick skin to begin with. And I like to illustrate it this way. I say, so here's some grumpy old truck driver whose employer just said, I want you to start driving trucks with more than one trailer, but you're going to have to go get certified. And, he's already upset because he's been driving trucks for 30 years and no one's going to tell him something he doesn't already know about truck driving. So he goes to the place, asks for, says what he's there, and they point him out to a truck, said, yeah, truck's out there, go get in it. So he walks out there, opens the driver's door, jumps in, and there's a woman sitting in the passenger seat. So he thinks he's going to intimidate her. That's the first. So he pulls out his tin of Copenhagen snuff chewing tobacco. And if you've ever seen anyone that likes to chew snuff, they kind of do it with a flourish. They're round little tins. They take their thumb and they tap it like that a few times, take the lid off, put it underneath, and then they reach in and get 3 fingers and put it between their lip and their front teeth, put the lid back on. So to intimidate her, he does that and then offers her a chew. Well, she pulls an empty Coke can from between her legs and goes, nope, I'm good.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I played baseball, so I was always around people that chewed. Yeah, I never did it myself. But yeah, that's good. That's a great response.
Yeah, so I asked her, I said, I'd like to write a fictional story, but use this as kind of like the linchpin that why everything happened. And because it involved her husband, check with him and make sure he's all right. Yeah. So she did. So well, yeah, I can write it and I know how to publish it. So I moved forward and did that. People said, have you got a sequel coming along? And well, I kind of didn't, but I thought of something else using characters from the first book, not on a fire, but my second book, which is Between a Rock and a Dark Place. And that has to do with 2 high school seniors that skipped school on a Friday morning to go up on the side of the mountain to set traps out. And they're on snowmobiles. And one guy winds up going over what he thought was just kind of a big rock or something. It's covered with snow, and one side was a rock, but the other side was just brush. And so when he went up, it twisted the snowmobile sideways, and he was thrown off into the brush, and he disappeared. They find that he's fallen down an air shaft of an old abandoned gold mine. And so that creates the rock and the dark place.
Yeah.
Ill-advisedly, one of my characters from the first book winds up going down the air shaft on the end of a cable from the skidder he was bringing up on the mountain. And things shift in the air shaft, pinches the cable. So to pull him up would have broke his back. And so he gets out of his harness and falls the rest of the way down and gets covered with rock and is immobilized. So half of the book is him talking to the kid who he thinks is probably alive, but he's not sure. And so he's just talking to the kid to pass time, keep things going. Meanwhile, the other boy, his parents have a whole nother story going on. And so, gosh, I should have got one of the reviews from Amazon that this person wrote, but it shows the worst and the best of people.
Yeah.
And so what the real grit of life, well, in both of those books, the real grit of life is shown, and people deal with that in different ways. And you can tell some people are going to be successful. Mm-hmm. Some people aren't.
Right. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I have a third book that is really close. Actually, I did a quick little audio of the introduction in chapter 1 and put it out on Facebook just to see if it would get any reception. But it has to do with, well, I probably should mention this. For the last 12 years that I was employed by the Forest Service, I was a hostile work environment mediator. And they sent me around the eastern United States mediating hostile work environments. So this book is called The Weight We Carry. And the central idea is that we have blanks in what's going on. If you're walking down the hall and two people are talking at the water fountain and they look over and they see you, it seems to you that all of a sudden they quit talking. And you walk by, say hi. And when you pass them, look back, they're talking again. You're thinking, maybe they were talking about me. And so you have a blank and you fill it in the worst possible scenario. And then you start acting on that. And then the people notice that and they're not sure why you're being like that, but they don't ask you. They have a blank and they fill it in with the worst possible scenario. And so you have a downward spiral. So this is about an FBI agent that almost loses his home, his wife, his family, because of a blank he filled in. And it has to do with a coon dog named Jester. So, and it's based on a true story, not a coon dog, but it's based on a true story where a person almost did lose everything because of a blank.
Yeah.
So that's one I hope to have published in the not too distant future. And I have some others, but I'm not going to take time to talk about them.
Right. Well, that answers a few questions toward the end of my list here. Well, when I'm a pastor, and of course when I'm drafting sermons, it's all about the biblical truth, or which is obviously found in a passage or a group of passages. I'm anchor in the books. So you don't have to maybe just pick your first one and just, where's that one anchored, a biblical passage or some truth, some universal Christian truth that you find inspiration, or the book that we're discussing today.
Protagonist is on the fire. She obviously has some free time because her job is to move dozers around with her transport truck, not operate them. So she moves them and then waits to move them again. She has some time.
Mm-hmm.
She makes friends with the planning section chief, who's a lady in her mid to late 30s that had a kind of hard time going through schools, and she's always wanted a mate. She always hoped she'd find love. One of the things that the planning section chief says is she's never had a boyfriend, and she's thinking maybe she's been looking at the wrong gender. And my protagonist says, no, that's really not what's important. What's important is what the Bible says. So if you read the Bible and hear good preaching, what's right and what's wrong for you will become apparent.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't try to tell her something's wrong. She just tries to tell her what's right.
Yeah.
So to me, that's one of the things that makes it Christian fiction. I have skeptics, and most of my characters are not Christians, and some resist, but God works in a powerful way through the book. Yeah. And I think the ending is, at least for me, is very satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think of the film Courageous, if you remember that. I know it's not a book, but I mean, it might as well be. The best part about that movie is that there are characters that are flawed, and they make wrong choices, and some of them even turn away. Dean Cain's character, I believe, was the one in the first film, the Courageous film, that he ends up just living in his rejection, and it's powerful. It's powerful to see the human side of it, and I think any Christian fiction is gonna show that and not paint over it, right? So that sounds good. And so that kind of leads into the follow-up question here, or my third question, I should say. A lot of your listeners, from what you've told me, are looking for books that reach, men, boys, or families, just, entire families. How does your book, and we'll just say your first one, because I'm sure they'll find your books, or I'm not sure if they're an actual connected series. They sound like they're standalone novels, but
they are.
Yeah, they are. Okay. So, how do these books connect with that audience that you're targeting? Men, boys, families, men with families. How does that connect?
Well, several different ways to a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. Once I was on a fire, and a medic came up to me, and we had a really good heart-to-heart talk. And he told me the struggle he has with incident stress. What is it?
PTSD.
Yeah, PTSD.
PTSD.
And after our talk, he gave me 4 pages of typewritten material that he had put together as a way to help him deal with his PTSD. And you can imagine helicopters coming in, especially the Hueys, the 212s, would come in, and the whopping sounds of the rotor. They come in light, dip a bucket in the river or lake where we were close to, and then going out heavy. He would have to stop and just look around and reassure himself that he was not in Vietnam. Mm. And so my protagonist's father had PTSD. I hope that if people are suffering with that, they might find something to take away from my book there. Well, actually, let me jump to the second book. The fellow that's down in the mine with the first lad that fell in, he's talking to try to keep them both alive. He says things his father had said to him,
Mm-hmm.
things that he now knows as a Christian that he didn't pay attention to as a young man. And so, a good third of the book is kind of devoted to that.
Yeah.
What's it like to play sports?
Mm-hmm.
When you didn't know that practice because your mom didn't know to tell you.
Yeah.
When he tried to play basketball, it was like he was floating off the floor, so self-conscious. Throw me the ball. What if they blow the whistle on me? So I really think that young boys, and even, well, in the first book even, young girls especially, could relate to that, because my protagonist, I have her at about 6'2", and when she was a freshman in high school, she was already hitting 6 foot, and she felt like she stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
So there's things that kids have to deal with when they find them odd. And if I could have told myself and made myself believe it when I was young, you think are odd about you, nobody knows. Nobody pays attention to that. But you do. And it causes you to be different and to act different because you think everyone's looking at that character flaw or whatever. Yeah. So I would hope that especially single parent kids, mother, father, doesn't matter, they could read that and say, yeah, I felt that way, and this person really turned out well. Yeah. Regardless. So,
a method that you use to sharpen the faith of your readers. I mean, obviously you're trying to communicate a message, but you're hoping to maybe point out some area of change. I mean, I know that as a pastor, right? I'm not just up there just to be a talking head. My desire is that the Holy Spirit will move through the words that I'm saying and cause some kind of change. Now, I don't know what it could be. I have hopes of how I have hopes of, sharpening the faith of the listeners in the congregation. Is it the same for a Christian fiction writer like yourself? I mean, is there some kind of effect you're hoping to produce to sharpen their faith?
I would suspect, but often the characters are off on their own. And there's times, and I've talking with other authors, they have the same experience. Think their character is going from point A to point B, and all of a sudden they find their characters going to F. And they drag the author along with them, and he writes it the way the character dictates almost, and it's kind of like out of your control. But then you have to go back to the early part of the book and put some breadcrumbs in there so this aberration somehow makes sense. But I can't say that I do something like try to move a person to a point on purpose, because that's what I would do anyway. So I don't think, okay, I need to save this character or that character because, maybe the character is not going to get saved. No. So they kind of have their own life.
Right. Yeah. So you're not really forcing a specific message. Do you see the writing then more as a ministry or even a mission versus the message, since you're just allowing the characters to kind of, and some of them may not get saved? Well, you're not forcing it, right? So do you look at your writing more as a ministry message or mission, and how so?
Yeah, I don't think I call it a ministry, but I'd certainly call it a mission.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a mission. how we lead our life every day. Some people, you will be the only Bible, some people, that kind of a thing. And so I hope that people will find their way. The road is the road is straight and the gate is narrow.
Yeah.
And not everyone is going to find it. As one of the authors said, his greatest fear, he imagines it this way. There's two lines. People are to hell and people are lined up going to heaven. He says, I'm going to be in the line going to heaven. But I look over at that other line and I see someone. It would break my heart if they said, Mike, why in the world did you not tell us?
Yeah.
That person's going to be there. I would much rather them say, Mike, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and that is, yeah. And Jesus even said, right, he said, his mission, what was his mission? I think of that often. His mission was to seek and, and that's us. And he carried out his mission. Yeah, it was a ministry. Sure. We say it was his earthly ministry, and he certainly had, boy, he was a mission, and he was on a mission. And if you look at the definition of mission, it's a focused, purposeful assignment, something that's very, very important. And that's, he was here for just a short period of time, earthly speaking. And, so that you're looking at it more as a mission. And
bringing Jesus into it, let me thing. Jesus was the first Christian fiction author, even before the name Christian had been created.
Mm-hmm.
So he was writing fiction. The one son go work in the vineyard, and he says, "Yes, Father, I will." But he goes to town and does it. And the other son says, "No, I won't." Works. It was fiction. Great fiction story to tell a biblical. Who's doing the Father's will?
Yeah, parables. And so what you're doing differently is sort of moving away from real humanity. That's how you're combating this. You're showing the realistic side of people that may not get saved, but people that are getting saved, people that we deal with now in contemporary society. Would you say that's what doing a little differently, just for you personally?
Well, yes, and too.
Right.
And you write about a Navy SEAL and an operating room nurse rescuing out of the sex trade traffic in Brazil, and it being blasé. Dirt and grit in life is in our books. Real. It's what we have to deal with.
Yeah.
We don't words or vulgarity,
right?
Because we all have good enough imagination. If we can hear it in our
Certainly.
we don't need to describe what sexual abuse is. We know what it is. So we don't include it. But I'd hope that we'll understand that Christian fiction is adventurous. The sci-fi is sci-fi. The twists and turns are intriguing. It's clean entertainment. One author said, walks you through the dirt, and when you're done, you don't feel dirty.
Yeah, nice. Well, speaking of that, who's someone, a Christian author who inspired early on? Who do you like to read? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I don't think anyone can top Frank Perotti. This Present Darkness, his series. is just fantastic. Blew me away when I first read that. Even though I'm not a great reader, that was just and T.S. Eliot, C.S. Lewis, the Screw Tape Letters.
Yeah, for sure. What's the hardest lesson or the most difficult lesson that has taught you through this writing journey? I didn't realize you had 3 books written. That's my ignorance.
No.
So I'm assuming there's been some tough lessons that you've been taught. So do you have the most difficult?
Well, I guess if you don't start something, and for everyone that thinks they like to write a book, a novelette or whatever, it's not like school. You're not going to get a grade. Just start and just do it. It's the only way that anything ever gets done. And you might, as in my case, when my first novel in my hand, I was just, wow. I did not think, without those little steps that I mentioned that lead you along, I would never have done that. Steps, wanting to get my books in front of more people, going to see about getting on a podcast, finding only on podcasts that were all about romance or nonfiction. I didn't find I had to start a podcast.
Men do not read. Many more women. Your books clearly can be read by women, the target audience being primarily that. So you might have a lot of they're listening to this. They're not sure. Do you have wisdom about your books to convince them? Is there some thing? I mean, I've already been kind of interested in what you're some things that I don't know anything about forestry, but that's already. I mean, can you condense it into some, like, just a single? Somebody's skeptical. I'm a skeptic. Why should I buy Mike Baines' book? I do that?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would just say, you might. It's about real life. It really happens.
Writing process look like? Everybody, most people that listen to podcasts like this, especially about authors, interested in what the procedure, and everybody does it differently. Do you wake up at a certain time of the day? Do you write more of just free form? I mean, go ahead. What do you think about your process?
Well, they say there's outliners, and I write by the seat of my pants, so I'm a pantser.
You're okay.
Yeah, I have a book that I've started 4 times, 4 or 5 different chapter 1s. It's not coming along very well, but I'm not too worried. I think in time, it's possible that it's a book that I don't need to write. It's possible. Whereas the short story kind of fell out of midair.
Yeah.
And I guess I through that, and that's the one about filling in the blank. I know that disrupts people's lives. I wanted to write a story that illustrated that and encourages people not to fill in the blank. The writing process is something that I want to say. It's then I just start. It's the center of the onion. I layers around it until it's ready to be
I have found that I'm kind of both. There's times where I can, and honestly, Mike, I can write it in no time. But if I'm doing a series, as you saw, if you were there last night, an outline, because it keeps, so a series, if I were to outline it just to keep my own consistency in the story. But if I'm writing a stand novel, or a sermon, do it, because I think some of my best writing, probably, I don't know if this is true for you, your best writing just comes right out of the seat of your pants. And not held back by that outline, because that can be very restrictive. You're more of a pantser, so for all of you listening to that, that's gonna cause panic, I'm sure, for you. But the pantser every now and then, because it's as a writer to just see what comes out of just go where it goes. So that leads into I love this question. And this sounds very abstract and sometimes a little writers, and I get this, because there are moments, I'm sure, Mike, where even what is coming out of you, whether it's a story arc that is completely surprising that you didn't even plan, you were writing, and you can pick any of the books you've written, or a story that surprised you, whether it's the arc that it took or you introduced and you don't like them, or maybe you like them and you're like, wow, I like this character. Like, is there just anything, these little writing?
Yeah, there are once in a while. The one that comes to mind, I'm
Gotcha. Because you'll have to wait, folks. You'll have to wait.
Yeah. The kind of the revelation that came to me, and it's the end of the book, and it's the coup de grace, or whatever it's called. But yeah, that I thought I'd forgotten. Instances, I was on a little league team, although I was scared to death to play. Getting to the games, it's because I dilly. Once I was going through these alleys, and a pigeon looked at me as it flew away and hit knocked itself out. So I was really late that day.
I bet.
Because I picked the pigeon up. Gosh, I should do something with this guy. And so I found a dried out 1 gallon on down the alley, and the paint can, and put bricks on so it'd be there when I came back.
Well, listen, folks, that you'll have to wait and see if that ends up in the books. But so what you would say, life surprises you, and even if it's not the same exact thing that you just experienced with the pigeon, all the time. And I have to be honest, they're very surprising, and I love that. I think that's part of the adventure as a writer. So, yeah. Well, then, speaking of that, I mean, most writers their personalities are certainly character, if not all of them in some way. And if so, which ones?
There's that I wish I was.
True.
Yeah.
Especially in science fiction. You want to be the super.
I wonder what it's like to. Man.
That's it.
But yeah. Of course, there's me. I included one of my favorite lines. One of my grandsons, when 4, somewhere in there. How far down does the sky? What made you think of that? That's just, I had not thought about that, but, and I look off towards the mountains there. The mountains are, how far down does the sky? Things like that are bewildering, interesting.
Yeah. When I read, I like to read. I haven't read a lot, but there's always character. But yet, even the ones that I don't like, they're still compelling. What happens to them? I want to know if I love to see changes. The characters are changeable. They're malleable, rigid and the same, and I think that's very human. Is there I think you summarizing it with this question, is there like your readers to take away from your books, maybe collectively? Key message?
If there is one, I hope. Find Jesus. Keep him close. And don't quit growing in the love that's in there, as well as warnings that there's someone, whether it's up or down.
Yeah. Well, all the humanity and all the realism that's in. There's got to be the. And that's very real. Well, just wanted to say something personal. My wife and I were in premarital counseling. That way back in 20. Back at the other church where we actually met you and your wife. Part of our premarital counseling, we had been married a while and kind of go to lunch with them, ask them questions, and I'm jostling your memory, but you and your wife all went out. I think I'm going to say Bill's, but I'm not sure.
Bill's Golf
I think
Land.
it was Bill's Golf. I don't remember all of the substance of that. Took out the time to mentor my wife and I. It's fantastic. So your books, but through real life, through your heart and your for that.
Well, thank you for those kind that you and Lexi would be about us.
Well, God's
stuck our little toe in the pool and in that
that's
way.
Right. Yeah. Your audience, do you mind if I for your audience pray for you? Message to reach the right person, even if it, as you just we hope it's more. We do. I've always said the same thing. Even if one person shows up at church to preach it to them the same way as I would anybody. Can I say a word of prayer for you?
I appreciate it so much.
All right. Much for this opportunity. We're so and that we have the means and the help to have these abilities and to promote something Christian fiction from Christian authors who through fiction, through a particular world, and it's wonderful to see. And so, Father, I want to lift up not only Mike that he has interviewed. We just reach audiences that need to find a lot of hope in. There's a lot of humanity and reality. In fact, that's what makes the best fiction. Is relatable. And so, Father, for future books would, if they are meant to be, the courage and the ability and be with him. And we just ask for, we certainly, but Father, we just really read them. Of course, the Bible's the most important. And so we values that are being promoted here. So I just, audience that's listening here, and it's in Jesus' mighty name.
Amen. So much. Thanks to Lexi
I did
for me. I rather had step in, and I just appreciate it so much, man.
So thank you very much.
Press end, and I always feel bad, but I'm pressing. I hope and the mission behind Christian give you a glimpse into the heart behind the books. Podcast as well. Find my novels on Amazon, and of course of the podcast on Substack, where you're tuning in from today. Site is coming soon, we hope, and much more. The authors you hear on this show, and share the podcast with friends. Remember, subscribe, and we can continue to grow a community that celebrates telling with real grit, and may God's goodness guide your steps, journey, and may you all for your life. This is the Wordsmith Forge Christian out.